Hello everybody, Blake Rudis here. Day 21 of the 30 critique sessions over 30 days. We've got an image here from F64 Elite member Louise Danforth that we're going to take a look at, but before we do that, we got the twist. So GJA63 says, excluding tone and color adjustments, only use camera roll to fix disconnects you find in your next image. Love the series. Excluding tone and color adjustments. And we also have a message here from Lewis Burley that says, these aren't critiques, these are secretly the best Photoshop videos on YouTube. And I think that that's a really, really awesome message. Now, before we jump into the critique, we've got an incredible announcement for the donation amount. So you're going to want to stick around for that. I know a lot of people skip it. And I know that because I look at the analytics and I see how the chart just trails off when we get to that point. But you're going to want to listen to this because it's really, really awesome and big news. And I can't wait to get to that point. But before we do that, let's get into the critique. This image comes from Louise Danforth, and I like this shot. You know, I live in Missouri in the Midwest, and we've got a lot of these barns and old silos and old barns. Just you drive down I-29 up north to Nebraska, and you're going to see this pretty much the whole way from left and right on both sides of the road. So there's no shortage of this type of photography in my area, but it's not often that I see them in the best light. You know, this, I think, to me, shows that you can drive past the same place 150 times and think that there's nothing there. But then once the light is right and it shines on there in such a beautiful way, you realize, wow, I live in a beautiful place and I don't have to go to some place like Yosemite to make amazing shots. I just have to wait for great light. And a lot of times if you don't have phenomenal subject matter to put in front of your camera, light is going to be your best friend. And I think in this case, you showcase that with the beautiful sunset. I think it's sunset, maybe sunrise that we have here. And I think it's gorgeous. Now, as far as the image is concerned, I think there's a slight disconnect here that I have. It feels like it was color graded, or maybe the white balance was a little bit off, but everything has this really strong kind of warm presence to it, which that's what we would get from a sky like that. But a lot of times we don't get that warmth of color of light over the entire scene. We do if it's before or after a storm. In some cases we can see that, but I think it's very rare that the entire landscape turns that orangish color. You're still going to see green, like the lively green that it is, until the sun is completely set and then it goes into darkness. So I feel like we need to do a little bit of foreground background separation and do some separate color grading for each one, and I think that that would really help this shine a little bit. So let's go ahead and open this up in Photoshop and see what we can do here. Okay, so I am going to do everything in Adobe Camera Raw, and I would normally only do tone and color adjustments to this image anyway, using either my tools or the tools in Photoshop, but let's see if we can do that in Adobe Camera Raw. All right, so in Adobe Camera Raw, I'm going to press and hold the Shift key, and what that'll do is it'll automatically switch me over to white balance and it'll auto everything. So if I press and hold Shift and then click right here, that'll neutralize this area. So it cuts through that color grade pretty well, and I like that. So that fixes the color part, but I do think that I want a good blend of both. So I'm going to pull this back a little bit. Now my traditional workflow is tone, color, and then effects. So I'm effectively using Adobe Camera Raw to fix the tone and color parts, because I genuinely do not like using Adobe Camera Raw for color grading, and therefore don't feel like I want to use it for color grading in this image. So that's why I flipped the script on this. I'm doing the tone and color in Adobe Camera Raw, and then I'll do the color grading in Photoshop. And I know that wasn't what the twist wanted, but I won't go against my own workflow and color grade inside of Adobe Camera Raw. I just won't do it because I don't think it's a good practice. And the reason why is because there's so many better ways to color grade inside of Photoshop with blend modes, blend if, and all the masking and beautiful ways that you can do that, that I'm just not going to do the color grading inside of Adobe Camera Raw. So I can do, though, is a little bit of light here, and I just want that basically on that foreground area. Just a little bit more brightness, and then I'll drop down my whites so it protects that area from exploding on me, and then maybe increase my shadows and drop those highlights a little bit just to get a little bit more light into the area, and press OK. Now once I do that, here's the before, Here's the after. It gets us a little bit more light, a little bit more color in there. And now I want to finish this off with a color grade that's going to just be a veil of color over top of it that would be very similar to the original color grade that we had here that's got this very strong warmth to it. But we're just going to add a warming filter over top of it. But we're not going to use the photo filter because I don't even know what's going on in there. So instead, I'm going to use something like solid color fill. Now with this solid color fill, I can color grade this in a really unique way because I can grab from the color in the image, but you have to turn the preview of the solid color fill off. Then I'll double click it again and click on a color that's in the image, like that orange there. And then I can change this to something like soft light or vivid light, because that I think mimics the light of the sun really well. And then we just drop the fill until we get that color grade to come in the perspective that we want it. And look at the beautiful light and coloring that we get with that. Now, the reason why I don't necessarily like color grading inside of Adobe Camera Raw is I can't do what I want to do to this now. So what I want to do on this layer, on the color fill layer, is beef my brush tool, and I'm going to use a textured soft edge brush, change this to the black, and then click here just a couple times, and that's going to make some of that green come back through because we're painting with black on this layer here. So if I Alt Option click, you can see that it's not very bright, but what's happening here is we're kind of blending the best of both worlds because we're blocking out this color grade on that green area here. Okay, and you can see that by pressing and holding the shift key, turning that on and off, I still get some of that color to come through. Now, this is a form of color grading that you're not going to be able to do in Adobe Camera Raw very easily, especially with the masking, because guess what? You don't get textured brushes in there. So this will give us some texture of that green back in with that warmth. And I think that that becomes very successful because then all of the color isn't completely changed. Now, if this isn't moving fast enough and you want that to be stronger mask, I can always go to image and go to adjustments and then levels or curves, and then I can make that mask darker and you can see how it starts to come through even more. You see that? This is why I will not color grade in Adobe Camera Raw, because you get so much more control over that color grade inside of Photoshop. Now let's look at our overall beginning. Great shot, a lot of good bones there. The color grade was a little bit too much for me as a disconnect, but I think we can pull it all together and make it work out pretty well here with something like this. So thank you very much for sharing this with us, Louise. Our showcase image comes from Gary Sindel, and I enjoy this. You know, I've seen images like this before where they kind of take this motion blur effect and they blur it from the middle, and it just kind of creates this almost abstract feeling for the forest. And what I like about this is, to me, this feels like I'm a big fan of art history, and one of my favorite art movements was Futurism. And the way the Futurist movement worked is people like Marcel Duchamp weren't okay anymore with the idea of painting a still subject to represent movement. And what I mean by that is Marcel Duchamp had this painting called Nude Descending a Staircase. And you would think that it would be a nude man or woman that's going down a staircase. But what it looks like is a set of 2x4s just like falling down a set of stairs. And what the representation was there was that you cannot paint or draw someone moving down a set of stairs. So if something is actually descending the staircase, you have to show it as if it is descending the staircase. So what that means to me when I look at this is like, this doesn't feel like a forest anymore. This feels like the feeling of driving through a forest, which has a very futurist type of feeling to it. I think the futurist movement would appreciate something like this, where you're taking a photograph and then making it feel as if you are driving through this forest at, 35, 45 miles an hour, whatever that speed limit might be. But it's not a snapshot of that forest while you're driving. It is the feeling of driving through that forest. And I think that that's what this makes me feel. I enjoy it because there is a sense of stillness to it if I look at it for what it is. But then if I really think about it and I want to move through that space, it actually makes me feel as if I am moving through that space. So I really think this is cool, Gary. Thank you for sharing this with us. So we have a big update on the donation amount for Give Kids Art. But before I mention that, let's look at our breakdown. Right now, we are looking at $5,005 that came in from 105 individual donors. That is incredible generosity. There is $1,357 that is coming in from the interaction that's happening here with F64 Academy and with the memberships to F64 Elite, which would bring our total to something like $6,362, right? But this weekend, I received an email from the Circle of Dreams Foundation, and the Circle of Dreams Foundation helps support other organizations that are willing to participate in maintaining balance within nature by actively bettering themselves or their community and therefore the world. So what they told me is that they're happy to support art kits for the kids to help them change the world for the better through art. Now, they proposed a $5,000 matching donation once the donations reached $5,000. And over the weekend, we reached $5,000. So the Circle of Dreams Foundation has reached out to give kids art and donated $5,000 on behalf of this campaign. So that brings our total to $11,362. That's 757 art kits. And I am just floored by the level of generosity that is coming in from the people who are watching this 30 Days, 30 Critiques, and also from the Circle of Dreams Foundation. This is incredible. I just want to give a sincere thank you to the Circle of Dreams Foundation for their incredibly generous donation that is really going to help put art in kids' hands. $11,362. Can you believe where we're sitting at on day 21? I cannot. I'm really excited to see what happens for day 22. I don't know if anything can top this, but we're back to doing our twists because tomorrow is not pre-recorded, just like today was not pre-recorded. So let's enjoy the rest of the critiques and see how much more impact we can have on Give Kids Art. Thank you so much, Circle of Dreams Foundation, and all of you for your generous donations. From $5 to $5,000, we don't get art into kids' hands without generosity like this. Thank you all very much.